Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Entrada's Classic Conversations. I'm Don Gomes, and we're now in our third year of Classic Conversations, talking with people who, from a wide swath of activities and interesting people who've had an impact on Wayne County. We welcome a live audience here at Robert's Roost, and normally we would have our Facebook audience, but Facebook is being cranky tonight. So tonight's program will be videoed and available online tomorrow. So tonight's program, like most Entrada programs, are free. In the past, we would pass the hat for people to make a contribution to support the other expenses that we have. In the age of COVID, however, we ask you to pass by the hat. And some of you, a couple of you, have made a contribution online when you made your reservation for tonight. We thank you for that. And we'll open for questions later, as we normally do. But you'll need to go to the microphone, which is just, Mickey, you want to point it out where it is there? Yeah, right here. And it doesn't amplify into the room, but that way it's clear on the video. Okay. So. Okay. Yeah, cell phones. They do have a life of their own if you can put it on airplane mode or bus mode or whatever works. That would be appreciated. Well, tonight I have the privilege of talking with Kurt Robbins. Kurt's been in here before. We'll talk about the history of... And let me make sure I have this correct. You're the district ranger, the Fremont River Ranger District of Fishlake and Dixie National Forest.
Yes. Yeah, we would say Fishlake National Forest, but we administer Dixie National Forest lands as well.
Okay. Yeah. Now, besides being a good guy, you're somebody that is quite unique. I have never met anyone who grew up or lived in Scipio.
Yeah, it's Scipio.
or Scipio. What is the correct?
Scipio. It's Scipio. You got it right.
Okay. Yeah. And what was that like?
Oh man, yeah, it hits near to the heart. We call it Round Valley over there, and it was. I couldn't ask for a better place to grow up as a young man. Raised on a dairy farm and did some sports, and yeah, it was great. I had a great mom and dad, grandma and grandpa just down the street, and another family across the street that I considered parents as well. So I always felt like I could go to 3 different houses at any time and get fed. So, and then the biggest challenge I had was when I went back to my house, my mother, she was very protective, and she'd be offended if she thought one of the other 2 fed me. So I had to always act hungry. So
that's a good thing.
So life.
Yeah.
To the question, life was great.
Keep mom happy. Huh?
Absolutely.
And you went to Millard High School.
Millard High School.
Played football?
Yes. Football, wrestling, track, baseball. So yeah, sports is in our family, and yeah, my dad was an assistant football coach, and loved playing with him and brothers, and yeah, so it was good living.
Was it always in your plan to go to college?
You know what it was? Yeah, mom and dad taught us all as children that we needed to get as much education as we could, and so it really wasn't a question that, it was always in my plans to get additional education.
So you started at Southern Utah State College then, right?
Yeah. Went to Cedar City to school. Went on a scholarship to play football, and so and then I went down there for a year, and then I went on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then come home and spent another year there, and then they only had a 2-year range program down there. So at that time, I did that, and then I transferred to Logan to Utah State.
Okay. So range science, how did you get oriented or interested in that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was there in school in Cedar City, and I was just taking general ed classes and really not sure what direction to go in, and a roommate of mine says, "Hey, you ought to go in and talk to my professor." I was talking to him one day. He says, and he was in range, and so that's what I did. I went into his name was Jim Bounds. Quite a noteworthy figure in southern Utah in range management, and I went in and I remember saying, I really love the mountains and the forest. And he looked at me and he says, "Curtis, you're not going into forestry, you're going to be a range man." And so that was how it all started, really.
Cool. So what's the difference between a forester and a range manager?
More just the type of land that you study and manage. Range science is more focused on range lands. Forestry is more focused on the forested acres on, wherever.
Okay.
So, I'm a little biased, but I in range, it's to me is more applied ecology. We had to take wildlife courses, forestry courses, watershed courses. It's in my mind a little more encompassing of natural resources.
So now you've graduated.
Yeah.
Where'd you go from there?
So going through school, I worked seasonally on the Fillmore Ranger District, and that was probably the start to my career and helped point me in the direction that I decided to go in. And after that, I met my wife my senior year in college in Logan, and we just started applying for jobs. She also attended Utah State, and that's where we met. And then I actually landed a job in Duchesne on the Fishlake National Forest. And so I finished school just a little bit before she did, so I moved over there. And when she got done, she moved over and joined, and yeah.
So you've stayed in Utah through your career.
Yeah. I've been on 4 different districts, and but it's all been in Utah. Just kind of made a loop in the state. So.
Did you ever have, an idea that you might want to be outside of Utah for an assignment?
I don't know that I've looked at different jobs, but it's just always worked out that way that I've ended up where I have. So.
Right. So if there is one, what's a typical day for a district ranger and others working in the district?
Oh, that's probably one of the neatest things about my job is, for me right now, I go to a lot of meetings, but I'm also, it seems like there's something new every day that I'm a challenge that we're dealing with. That's what's so neat about working for the Forest Service is just the variety of work and the different things where you can try to make a difference, from making sure a town has water, or a rancher has got what he needs to run his cows, or a vegetation project, looking at vegetation manipulation on the district. And then here in this area too, we have a recreation program that really, I spend a lot of time at that, addressing different issues, that kind of thing. So my day is meetings and talking to the public and working with my staff, employees. Also another thing that I get involved in is fire. That's a big part of the Forest Service, so spend a lot of time with that as well.
So you pretty well know going into the Forest Service that you're probably going to be fighting fires?
You know what? It used to be that way. It seems like people have the opportunity to, pick their careers. And when I started, it was kind of an unwritten order of things that you supported the fire effort and organization. So, and that's how I got into it. During my seasonal time, I was on a fire crew and run a Pulaski and chainsaw and cut line, and was in the operational side of it. And so Yeah, it's.
You kind of sparkle when you start talking about that.
You know what? That's been one of the real fun parts of my career. Is I've been on a fire team that goes around the West. As I've gotten older, I can't keep up with the young folks. We call them the ground pounders. So I've switched over into logistics. So I'm a logistics section chief, and that's a whole fascinating thing as well. Coming onto a fire, and you're trying to bring order out of chaos,
Sure.
and you got people coming and going, and you're immersing yourself into a community and trying to be good neighbors to them and help them in their time of need. And I really love it. It's very rewarding, and it's that's something that gives me hope, is the goodness of people as you go out and you're in that situation. And so anyway, it's something that it'll be some of the joyous memories that I have with the Forest Service.
So going back, what, 30 years? 30
Yeah,
plus?
I started in 1986,
Okay.
5 seasons in Fillmore, and then I've been, and then I permanent full-time in 91.
At that point, was it what you thought it would be, and how has it changed for you?
Technology is, it's been a blessing and a curse. I think that has probably been the thing that I've struggled with the most in my career, is just keeping up with this younger generation. They're so quick to that work, and for me, I'm just struggling to try to be able to communicate in that environment, and I've had to work hard at that. I watch, our youth of today. It's just their language, and so I remember just coming out of college, and that was when I was introduced to what we call the Data General. That was the system that we used to communicate in the Forest Service, and so that's probably the thing that, I would say has changed the most, is just the technology that we're dealing with now in natural resource management. So.
And natural resource management, there's also personnel management.
Oh, absolutely.
What are there excessive vacancies locally, nationally, or?
You know why? I appreciate you asking that, Don, and we really are struggling right now. Probably similar to the private sector in filling positions, even here locally. We have some vacant positions, and we're working at that, but it is a problem right now. So,
Do you see the next Curtis Robbins among the people that you work with?
you know what? I do. I'm prejudiced, but right here on our district, I have an incredible staff, and on the forest that I work with, just some really bright people that I'm confident that the people that are coming up in the agency are going to be very capable of moving forward. So,
Okay.
and then and then there's also, I'm a little bit of the old school too, where you got to get out on the ground, kick the dirt a little bit, and shake hands. And I would encourage our younger generation to remember those things. Those are you need to know your resource. I remember moving here. The ranger before me, that was his first assignment to me, was, Curtis, you need to get out on the district and know what's out there. So anyway, and I see that sometimes with this younger generation. They love to work on that computer and those, all of that kind of thing. That's helpful, but there's nothing like being right out in the resource and learning it that way.
Excuse me. So yeah, you got to know the territory, but that territory includes other federal agencies, but you also work with communities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the passions that I think that we have as people who work for these agencies. When we live in these little communities, we have to remind ourselves sometimes that it's broader than that. I mean, it's the American people that we serve, and but it's also critically important, you know, and from my perspective, that we do the best job that we can with the rules and regulations that we have to be accommodating to these little communities that depend on, you know, on these resources. So.
Over your career, is there any one thing or series of things that stands out as that you're especially proud of?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that. I love our motto, you know, it's caring for land and serving people. And it stands out to me when we used to have a senior citizens program where we could hire people who had worked their careers and then needed a little work after their careers to continue on, and that was very fulfilling to me when we had that program where we could bring on seniors. And interestingly, we had a group of individuals that worked for us, and I always had to remind them that they did not have to do the work that these college students that we were hiring, that they'd already earned their stripes. But inevitably, they would be the ones that seemed like they understood what hard work meant more than. So that was something that I really enjoyed, as well as mentoring the seasonals that we hired. A lot of times it's their first job, and to see their enthusiasm and willingness to do the work, you know, that you have. And so I've over the years supervised and encouraged and mentored several people who have just graduated from high school, and tried to help. You know, they've become doctors and vets and all kinds of neat things, you know, and so that's been really rewarding to me. So.
Are there any undone projects yet for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the dilemma I'm in right now. I want to see some things through on the district. It's not typical that somebody stays in the same place as long as I have here on this ranger district. And also, I mean, we're putting a lot of effort into the fuels situation on these forests. You know, we see in the news what's going on in the West with the challenges of what we call the urban interface, and homes being destroyed, and private property, and it, you know, we're not maybe like a California where, you know, there's been so much growth, but we still have some challenges here, and trying to improve some of the resources that we're dealing with. You know, like, I'll just give an example, our aspen communities, they're critically important on the National Forest, and they, you know, it's our belief, and the science would say that they are used to disturbance, you know, ecologically the process, where we've taken fire out of the system has allowed for conifer to start to encroach and crowd out our aspen stands. And so that's one of the ones that I've been working on our forest, trying to reverse that, where we can begin to reestablish our aspen communities. And there's other plant communities as well that we need to make some changes in. So,
The Pando project, you've
yeah,
worked with that group.
yeah, it's just a kind of a microcosm of aspen management and the challenges we have there. It's been one of the really fun projects that we have is the Pando project, and it's on the Fishlake. So we actually signed. We have what's called a National Environmental Policy Act. It's anytime we make a decision on the National Forest, law requires us to disclose it to the public and the environmental effects, and we just signed a decision that we're going to realign the fencing around the Pando to include more fencing on it. We have a plan to put a little interpretive project there, so when people come, we're getting people all over the world actually coming to see that. It's not huge, but and we're careful. We don't want to. I need to be careful here. It's not a design to turn it into a tourist thing. We want to protect the Pando clone. But in the same token, if people want to come and enjoy it and be educated or, learn about it, then that's what we're trying to set up. So we're prepared and ready to go if people come, which I think they will. So.
Now, the Forest Service operates under the Department of Agriculture. Is that correct? So
Yes.
You're the only land management agency not part of the Department of Interior. That's just a long-standing reality, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And you hear different rumblings over the years, of whether we should be consolidated under the Department of Interior, but it just, for whatever reasons, it's not happened, and things seem to be working. So that's beyond me, though. And but yeah, we're so Paul here tonight. He also works under the Department of Ag, so Farm Service agencies.
Sure. You were talking earlier. You're pretty comfortable on a horse. Right? What's the Central Utah Backcountry Horseman?
Okay, so there's the backcountry horseman of the country, and then Central Utah was for this area, but it's actually dissolved. It was a challenge of getting the younger generation involved, and it just wasn't there. And so at the time that I was a member of that, we was doing trails maintenance projects. The Tasha campground in the Fishlake Basin was there was a lot of volunteer hours and sponsorship by the Central Utah Backcountry Horsemen, and so I was involved in that while it was in existence. So yeah, but I am a horse lover. Yeah, I was mentioning to you earlier, that's probably my best days is when I'm on a horse, either with a group of people or by myself. Either way, it seems, that's where I can relax and just, anyway, that's my peaceful place.
Nice. So. Talk about the non-peaceful times. What are some of the biggest hassles that you come across?
Oh, let me see. You know what? I'm a pretty positive person, so when we lose a basketball game in high school, no, I don't know. I really don't know. I guess we've got challenges in our home and different problems, but career-wise, I feel, I just and here in Wayne County, I feel incredibly blessed to work with the people that both people internally and externally. I mean, we have just the most amazing people that I get to live amongst, and it's always sorry.
Okay.
This place is dear to me, and
well, and you've been able to make a career that kept you in the heart of it.
And but it truly is the people, Don. We all come from different backgrounds, but the generosity and goodness of people is really what helps us to succeed as an agency. I share this truthfully. Without the goodness of the people that live in these little communities, I think we would struggle. But that, when you mention challenge, I draw from the strength of the people that I live amongst, and their wisdom and knowledge, and people of genuinely care about these resources from all different walks of life, and I see way more commonality than I do see in differences. So that's my view of the world, and
Good.
I'm going to stick to it.
Well, I have more questions, but I'd be more than happy if anybody wants to ask Kurt a question. Again, step right up to the microphone there to Mickey's left. Oh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so Kurt, when this question comes from hiking around and looking on the ground in the forest, seeing an arrowhead, but it stays there. What amount of archaeological artifacts or like that says, oh, this area's got to be designated archaeologically sensitive?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, so I'm not the expert on that. I'll disclaim right now. We have archaeologists that make that call. So all the projects that we do, there's a protocol that our archaeologists do the survey work. And I know that they have, I'm not sure the exact terms, but that it'll either be significant or non-significant. So they have some latitude. They also do a consultation with the State Historical Preservation Office that is governed under the National Historical Preservation Act, I believe is how it all works. So we're regulated by that. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but we have specialists that make that determination as to whether it's significant or not. So yeah, there is some latitude in different projects and what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, I guess just for me, it just seems like almost anywhere you go, you can go, oh, something happened here that's significant.
And we're culturally rich here with historical artifacts, not only from our Native Americans, but also European settlement. And so, those things are all important to us on the National Forest to do the best that we can to preserve and protect those things. So,
Thanks.
Under the Department of Agriculture, multiple use is a term I've heard many years versus wise use.
mm-hmm.
Is there any conflict that you found in your working between the two?
I don't think so. I mean, the Multiple Use Sustained Yield Act is one of the laws that was passed by Congress. Mm-hmm. I would say also that we're bound by several other laws. So National Forest Management Act, National Environmental Protection Act that I mentioned earlier, National Historical Preservation Act. So there's several acts of Congress that in environmental protection, EPA. What does that law say? There's several. I can't keep track of all. Endangered Species Act. So there, and we're bound by all of those laws and regulations that are on the books. So, and the Multiple Use Sustained Yield Act, I think when it was passed, was with the intention to. My perspective of that is that we're good stewards of the land and we work for the common good of everybody that needs or finds place with public land.
Great.
So
Ted, did you?
Curtis, it's good to be here tonight and hear your perspective, and I appreciate my friendship with you, and we'll talk about that or have done at other times. But my question is, what's the outlook for the future with regards to the trails up on the boulder in Thousand Lake. I know there's budget constraints and personnel and a number of things, but for those of us that like to get out and hike, you always enjoy when the trail's maintained and signage is up and those things. Any update on that you'd care to give?
I appreciate that question. Trails is one of my passions. That was actually, Ted, my first summer seasonal job was on a 12-person trails crew to rehabilitate a trail over on the Fillmore Ranger District that had flooded out in 1983. I remember that. Or excuse me, in 86 when I started. But anyway, it's the last 3-4 years we have really struggled budget-wise. And then the position was vacant for a time, just specific to the Fremont River Ranger District of maintaining our trails. And fortunately, we have that position filled again this year. So I'm hopeful that some of the trails, that people use out there, the non-motorized trails, you'll start seeing logged out again and fixed up. It's an acknowledgement that we have not done the job that needs to be happening. We do have on the forest, the Paiute Trail, motorized trail. That's a big draw here in central Utah. And that is all primarily funded through grants through the state of Utah. And so we make quite a concerted effort on that. But I am assuming that some of the non-motorized trails that we both like to hike is more what you're talking about. So I'm hoping, and if you have any trails that you come across that need some work on them, Casey Stewart is our new guide. Casey. We'll put him on them and do some work on them this year. He's eager to get going. So, yep.
Anybody else? Questions? Sure. Look out for this one.
Yeah.
So I got 2 questions. So first one is Forest Service had a horrible mishap with fire management over in New Mexico last year, and I know that sort of shut down some of the fire operations throughout the Forest Service. And so I was wondering if you could give us an update on what's happening with that in terms of future fire management activities and how that's going to be managed. So I'll ask that first.
Okay. Yeah. So the chief of the Forest Service, with the incident in New Mexico, put a pause on all our prescribed fire burning, and that now. They did an evaluation of that situation, and then our whole prescribed fire program, and they have come up with their findings, and we do now have the new plan in place to move forward with prescribed burning and have the authorization to begin to use that tool again. So, through this process, I think I heard data that 99% of our prescribed fires go as planned. 1% of the fires that we have done, prescribed fires, have not gone as planned. So the chief has said that 1% is not acceptable in the environment that we're, as it comes to prescribed fires. So we've all had to go through additional training. We're having additional reviews to what the burn plans that we have to write when we're going to burn. So there's several different steps that we're doing now. Anybody involved in prescribed fire now has to have the same level of training for us to be able to involve them in authorized prescribed burning. So hopefully we can up our game even a little bit more. I know that there's some tragedies that have occurred, and we need to keep working on that as an agency.
Yeah, it seems like the publicity goes to the things that go bad instead of the 99% that goes well.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, and that's kind of universal in human nature, I guess. So.
And I would just say that it's a big challenge, and the Forest Service is not going to solve this alone. We all have got to come together and own this. The challenges that we see going on with wildland fire in the West. Yeah, we need to, and I don't know that the Forest Service in itself has all the answers to that, but prescribed fire, the reality is we're going to have that tool to be able to address some of the challenges that we've got, in my opinion.
My next question has to do with just kind of overall visitation and the increases in the amount of people that are both, coming into the area as well, just to visit, and then the population increase that we're seeing in communities and the expectations of those. And so I'm wondering how the Forest Service is trying to address those kinds of issues.
Well, one of the things that we are grateful for is the Great American Outdoors Act that Congress just recently passed. It's been an infusion of dollars for us to address some of our deferred maintenance, and so and some of those dollars have reached the Fishlake National Forest. So we're excited about that. Dr. Kick Campground, for example, this summer is this coming summer, it's under contract now, is going to be renovated. New dump station, some of the infrastructure, improvements that we need to accommodate the growing population. Where we are struggling is with dispersed recreation. It's an important part of Utah and how we like to recreate, and you start looking at the projections of the state, the growth of the state, and what that looks like. And we have always allowed people to recreate across the district pretty much where they choose to camp and that kind of thing. And we are having some conversation of, is that sustainable? Do we need to do something a little differently?
Well, specifically Bees Lewis Flat. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's a great example. We're working right now with the park. I actually got a meeting with Sue here in a couple of weeks. So you got Bees Lewis Flat, and then you've got right there on the forest side, right next to the park, areas that, they've been used in the past, but I call it dispersed camping sprawl. And where are the limits to that? Where we've had some sanitation issues on, at least I know on the forest side of it, and I would assume they are having those challenges there on Bees Lewis Flat as well. So we're actually doing what we call NIFMA analysis, collecting all the data, how many campers are staying there, and we're drafting a proposal to try to address dispersed camping right there. And that's not unique to the district or the forest for that matter. With the growth of the state and the popularity of visiting the National Forest, we're grappling with it. So we're trying to figure out what the solutions are.
So you are a positive person, and do you think there's the increased visitation usage, whether it's in various forms? Have you seen an increase in, I guess I would use the term, abuse of public lands?
There is, absolutely. There's a segment of society that we're always wishing would reconsider their ways. So the jacket I'm wearing tonight, we implemented years ago. It used to be you could have free, open cross-country travel. The new travel plan doesn't allow for that, and that was all user groups come together and ask the Forest Service to change that, that it was not sustainable. So, but we still have there are individuals that, you know, for whatever reason, don't believe that that's necessary, you know, and that's maybe one of the frustrations and challenges that I have is that it's not a perfect system, but it is very much needed for the resource to protect it, and for all of us really to be able to enjoy what we enjoy here is we've got to try to respect some of those kinds of things so that we can all enjoy the resource. So,
Paul?
Curtis, you've left a little hole in your history.
okay.
Two-part question. Share with us when you first became acquainted with Rabbit Valley.
Okay.
Share with us a strength that you observed then. And is life different now than when you first had your experiences in Wayne County?
So, part of my upbringing in Scipio, this third family that I'm telling you about, they were also Robinses, but it goes back quite a ways to a Thomas Folwell Robbins, so not near as closely related. Anyway, the gentleman's name was Lil Robbins, and a mentor to me, but he had purchased property on Lyman Lane, and he has since passed away, but it's still in the family. And I don't know if I'm answering the right question, Paul, but anyway, I used to drive to Wayne County every other day and move sprinkler pipes for this gentleman. And that's quite a commute to move pipe, but anyway, and interestingly, as a young man growing up in high school, this is true. I decided in my mind and heart, that if I couldn't live in Scipio, I was going to live in Wayne County.
Okay.
So anyway, and it's just an amazing thing. My wife and I, we graduated from school in Logan. I go to Duchesne, spend 4 wonderful years there on the Ashley, which is a whole nother incredible resource there in the Uinta Basin. But Marv Turner was the ranger at the time here and called me up and says, hey, I got a job down here I'd like you to consider. And so I put in for it, and I got it in Teasdale. But the interesting thing about that, too, is while I was in Duchesne, I was called on a fire over to Escalante. And Lil Robbins had never taken me past Rabbit Valley or Bicknell. And so we'd go down there and eat a burger at Sunglow. But I didn't know Capitol Reef National Park existed at the time. I'm sorry, Sue. So, I go to this fire in Escalante, and we come around the east end of the Boulder, Highway 12, and I'm like, wow, it would be cool to work here sometime. All my high school days had spent moving pipe on Lyman Lane, and then I get this call, and I mean, the stars lined up.
It's a motivational thing to move pipe. Huh?
Absolutely. So, and life moves on, and the dynamics of Wayne County, I think Paul has shifted some, but it's either to our betterment or to our demise. And I think that the opportunities and our future in Wayne County is very bright. Again, I think that the wonderful people of Wayne County, I will just say here in Torrey, there's been more of an infusion of people that have moved into this area, and I think there's just such an opportunity for us. It's been from a religious standpoint. I'll just give you an example. I went to the Torrey ward, and they had the Teasdale ward, and they had a Torrey ward. Well, since we've lived here, they combined those two wards, and it was such a opportunity, and I'm just so grateful for it that it forced us to cross the Fremont River. And I have this whole host of wonderful friends now, both of my faith and not of my faith, that I just think are incredibly good people that have such insight. And I draw on that. And I also have a passion that we learn from each other and come together. And so anytime I can be a voice of, so I don't know if that answered your question, but you got me on something that I'm passionate about, Paul Pace, is that, anyway, I'm grateful to live here and amongst the people that I do. I think I've said that. So.
Sure. So what's next for Kurt Robbins?
Oh, right now I'm looking at, I don't know, 4 or 5 more years with the Forest Service, and if people are willing and they don't run me off, I want to finish strong and try to lift where I can and help where I can. There's certainly, we've got our hands full as an agency, and I would like to get us fully staffed and accomplish some of the work that the American people are asking us to do, and that's not easy. It's under all the different things that people expect from public land to balance that, but I think that there's a lot of room for us to come together and solve some of the challenges we've got here locally. So that's my career-wise, mentoring this younger generation, teaching them what a handshake means, what getting out on the ground and looking at the resource, bringing people together and solving sometimes hopefully their differences to make it better for all of us here. And that's a quality and the hallmark of Wayne County. Sure. So I just want to feed on that and be a part of that. Okay. I would like to just quickly mention, Don, sure. I haven't mentioned my family tonight.
Please do.
Yeah, you don't. Got to be careful here going into a sensitive area, but you're not you're not successful. Well, I need to qualify that. I am fortunate to have my better half. I always tell my wife, I can take on most things if we're on the same page.
Sure.
And she is, she's a good woman. And she tonight, as mentioned to you earlier, she volunteers tirelessly on so many different things. We have 5 beautiful children. 3 of them are married, and I'll announce it publicly that I'm going to become a grandpa.
All right.
In March. It's been long awaited, and our only daughter we're going to become grandmas and grandpas. Okay. So life is really, really good.
Well, Kurt, thanks so much for being part of this and being a Classic Conversation.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for being here. Next month, our Classic Conversation, it will be Barry Scholl. He's an attorney, he's a writer, he's a musician. He was one of the co-founders of the Entrada Institute. He's my musical partner, too. And he has deep roots, his family here in Wayne County. Entrada is a member of the Interfaith Council, and coming up Sunday, December 18th, is the annual Interfaith Holiday Program. It'll be at the Torrey Ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and all are welcome. And I get to close this program this year. Not close it down, but close it.
Yeah, that has always been one of the. It's
a great program.
It speaks to the program and to the Entrada and for what they're doing there. Much appreciated.
Thanks. And then I'm especially looking forward in January 21st, a cello concert recital and discussion with Bonnie Mangold. Bonnie was many years with the Utah Symphony. That program will be live only, kind of like tonight, by accident. And there'll be off-season programs every month, and if you're not already on the Entrada email list, go to the website and sign up for that. And all off-season programs will be starting at 6 before it gets terribly, terribly cold outside. And the full calendar is available on the website. And please do pass by the hat on your way out. And remember, nothing that is need be just because it was. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.